the day before my marriage to the crown prince. My younger half-sister became pregnant with his child. Since my father opposed it, she drowned herself in the lake on the night of my wedding. From that day onward, the crown prince repeatedly impregnated me, only to force me to take abortion pills each time. He even framed my father for a crime, intending to execute our entire family. Remember, this is what your entire family owes her. In my next life, I watched my younger half-sister, pregnant and kneeling on the ground, crying so hard her tears fell like rain, and I pleaded with my father to marry her to the crown prince. After all, a man who cannot control his desires will never amount to anything, and even if he does, he will easily be ruined by affairs of the heart. Chapter 1. When the crown prince drowned me, I was still in the postpartum confinement period. The emperor was on his deathbed, yet he didn't even wait to ascend the throne before taking action against our entire clan. In the biting cold, my body was still bleeding. He forced my head into the icy lake water time and again. Still unsatisfied, what's the difference between a legitimate daughter and a concubine's daughter? Back then, your family all thought she was of lowly birth and unworthy of me. Now look at you, your status is even lower and more despicable than hers. Chu Lin Yao, a woman with a heart as venomous as a snake's, doesn't deserve to carry the prince's child. You're not even worth a single finger of hers. Over the years, he vented all his hatred for Chu Bailian's suicide on me. Chu Bailian was the daughter of my father's concubine. She relied on her beauty and was determined to rise to power. From childhood onward, she always sought to outdo me in everything. She thought that by seducing the crown prince behind my back and getting pregnant first, she could take my place. Unfortunately, she miscalculated. My father was not the kind of man who would yield to threats. Not only did she fail to marry the crown prince, but she also ruined her own reputation, becoming a laughingstock throughout Bianjing. On the eve of my wedding, she came to my room and said, "Sister, even if I can't marry the crown prince in this lifetime, I won't let you live in peace. Just wait, on your wedding night, I'll personally deliver a special gift to you." It turned out that the gift she spoke of was to make the crown prince feel guilty toward her and hate me for the rest of his life. But it was clearly the two of them who were selfish and self-serving, one degrading herself, the other disregarding the greater good and risking the royal family's reputation for such a despicable act. My father feared that at this critical juncture, the other princes might find fault with him, causing the emperor to lose faith in him. He used the turmoil in the imperial harem and the unrest in the kingdom to silence me, forcing me to endure the disgust and marry him. Who are we doing this for? If I had a choice, I would rather not marry at all than choose a man who doesn't care about my dignity and impregnated my younger sister. And my father would rather ruin Chu Bailian's reputation and sacrifice my marriage to support him in securing his position in the Eastern Palace. In the end, it's become the fault of our entire family. It's not that I'm unworthy, it's that you're unworthy. I said. What did you say? The emperor is right, you're nothing but a worthless piece of mud, Gu Yunjing. You can't tell right from wrong. You don't care about the bigger picture. You don't deserve a wife. You don't deserve children. You don't deserve to be the crown prince. And you don't deserve loyal subjects to serve you. Heaven has eyes. And now that you haven't ascended the throne yet, without the Chu family, I'll be watching from the underworld to see how long you can keep your position as crown prince. After speaking, I ceased struggling and allowed him to choke me, my entire body plunging into the lake. Only the piercing coldness could bring clarity. Alas, neither my father nor I recognized his true nature sooner. Miss. It's terrible. The second miss is pregnant with the prince's child, and the master is administering corporal punishment in the family shrine. I opened my eyes and found that I wasn't dead. I had somehow returned to 10 years ago, before I had even been married off. The person before me was my personal maid, Yunshi. She has no shame, impersonating you to secretly consort with the crown prince. Now she has the audacity to beg the master to let her take your place in marriage. You must go and stop her before she succeeds. This was the day before my wedding to the crown prince. Chu Balian had been impersonating me and secretly meeting with the crown prince for so long. Yet she chose to reveal her true identity on the very day before the wedding. She must be certain that the crown prince has genuine feelings for her. And she is using her pregnancy with his child to threaten my father. Waiting for tomorrow's wedding. This way, she can preserve the family's reputation and force me to relinquish the position of crown princess. Her plan is well thought out. But she has chosen the wrong method and the wrong person to appeal to. I rose slowly from the bed and spoke calmly. There's no rush. Help me get dressed first. Anyway, my father wouldn't agree. She was asking for a beating. So let her take a few more blows. When I arrived at the family shrine after breakfast, Chu Balian was kneeling on the ground. Forcing my mother to acknowledge her as the legitimate daughter. The imperial edict only said legitimate daughter. It didn't specify a name. As long as the eldest lady acknowledges Leonor as the legitimate daughter, this won't be considered deceiving the emperor. My mother was so enraged she nearly fainted, pointing at her and shouting, "You impersonated my daughter to secretly consort with the crown prince. And now you dare to shamelessly demand I recognize you as my legitimate daughter? Do you have any sense of shame?" Chu Balian turned to plead with my father. The child in my womb is the crown prince's own flesh and blood. Father, you can't favor your elder daughter over me. We're all daughters of the Chu family. What does it matter who becomes the crown prince's wife? My reputation is ruined now. If you don't agree, I'll have no choice but to throw myself into the river. My father was so angry he slapped her across the face. You shameless woman. You have no shame. Yet you dare to drag your sister into this. Just then, a servant announced that the crown prince had arrived. Chu Balian suddenly went into a frenzy, kneeling on the ground and banging her head against mine. Please, sister, spare my life and the life of the child in my womb. If you want to beat or scold me, take it out on me. Just spare the life of the child in my womb, and I will be your servant for the rest of my life. Gu Yunjing grabbed Chu Balian off the ground and pointed at my father, accusing him. Minister of the Secretariat. A concubine's daughter is still a human being. Is this how you treat your own daughter? I will make this clear today. Either you acknowledge Leonor as your legitimate daughter and marry her to me tomorrow, or I will go to the palace myself and ask the emperor to annul this marriage. My father was a man who feared nothing in this world. In my previous life, he had said, "This disobedient daughter has brought shame upon our family. How could she ever become the empress? I am loyal to the crown prince. Even if I die today, I will never allow such a daughter to marry him." Years later, who could have predicted that my father's words of loyalty would lead to our entire family being executed? In this life, as my father was about to speak, I pulled him back. I shook my head at him and whispered, "Father, a wise bird chooses its perch." My father was a wise man. He understood the hidden meaning in my words. After the crown prince entered the room holding Chu Balian, he turned to me and asked, "Yawer, what do you wish to say?" A man who can't control his desires can't achieve great things. And even if he does, he'll easily be ruined by affairs of the heart. Is he really worth your life, father? After I finished speaking, my father fell silent. I continued, "Such a man who can't distinguish right from wrong, if he ever truly rules the world, he won't even spare our family a single bite. Will he even remember your loyalty to him? Although father has always taught us to serve the country without seeking reward, that person must be worth serving." Gu Yunjing emerged from the room and asked my father, "Chu Shanhe, have you made up your mind?" This time, my father's expression was much calmer than in the previous life. "This is a crime of treason. Even when a commoner's daughter is married off, they ask her in-laws for permission. This concerns the imperial family's reputation. I dare not make such a decision on my own." Chu official, Are you defying me? My father led our entire family in a bow. If the crown prince insists on this, I dare not resist. Please trouble the crown prince to go to the palace and plead for mercy on our behalf. In the past, Gu Yunjing had always relied on my father to cover for him, doing as he pleased. But now that my father was no longer willing to risk his life to plead for him, he hesitated. He glanced at me and said to my father, "Actually, Lord Chu need not be so stubborn. Let Lianer be the concubine and Chu Linyao be the main wife, and both of them can marry me." I sneered inwardly. Didn't Chu Bailian understand this logic in her previous life? What Chu Bailian has always wanted is not to be with him, but to be the crown princess and eventually the empress. Otherwise, in her previous life, even though she was pregnant with the crown prince's child, why would she rather die than wait for the position of concubine, and instead choose to fight to the death with me? Because she failed. She doesn't want me to have it easy either. Sure enough, Chu Bailian stumbled out of the room, knelt on the ground, and pleaded, "No, Crown Prince, please revoke your decision. You are my elder sister's future husband. How dare I even dare to think of you?" Such nonsense. But Gu Yunjing actually believed it, looking at her with a moved expression. For a moment, the two of them openly exchanged glances in front of my parents, humiliating me beyond measure. My mother couldn't help but interject. "You went so far as to impersonate my daughter to meet the crown prince. Yet you dare to claim that you wouldn't dare covet your sister's future husband? Who are you trying to fool?" Gu Yunjing's expression shifted from affectionate to suspicious, his gaze growing increasingly meaningful as he looked at Chu Bailian. She knelt on the ground, anxious and pale, explaining, "No, that's not it." Lianer didn't know that the person in front of her was the crown prince at the time. Lianer fell in love with the crown prince at first sight, and because of her lowly status as a concubine's daughter, she felt inferior. That's why she used her sister's name. Since the crown prince's heart belongs to my sister, how could Lianer, a lowly concubine's daughter, dare to share a husband with her sister? Lianer would rather step aside than hinder my sister's happiness. Such words could only be believed by Gu Yunjing. He spoke softly to comfort her. "What nonsense are you talking about? I've only seen your sister once. How could my heart be filled with her alone? You are her own sister. She wouldn't mind you becoming a concubine. Would she?" After speaking, Gu Yunjing glanced at me. I furrowed my brows. Why was he looking at me? Did he want me to join him in persuading Chu Bailian to become a concubine? It seemed that Gu Yunjing didn't truly care for Chu Bailian after all. In my previous life, he didn't have the courage to go before the emperor to call off the engagement. Yet he vented all his resentment on our Chu family. In this life, before my father could speak, I deliberately spoke up in compliance. "Your Royal Highness, this humble maiden dares not object." Gu Yunjing was naturally pleased with my response. Just as he was about to speak, I changed the subject and continued. "However, a concubine is different from a secondary wife. It requires the emperor's decree, a proper marriage ceremony, and an official seal from the Ministry of Rights. If you were to force my younger sister into the prince's mansion like this, it would be too much of a hardship for her. Moreover, the prince and my younger sister are deeply in love, and I do not wish to hinder the marriage between His Royal Highness and my younger sister. As for the matter before the emperor, it would be best for His Royal Highness to speak personally. How could I, as a subject, dare to speak on such a matter?" At this point, Gu Yunjing was completely enraged. It was he who had just said he wanted to marry Chu Bailian, and it was he who had gone to the imperial palace to call off the engagement. The atmosphere had been built up to this point. If he didn't go to the emperor's presence to propose, he wouldn't be able to save face in front of my father and Chu Bailian. He turned to my father and said angrily, "Say it then. Chu Shanhe. Don't regret this." My father. I rolled my eyes inwardly for my father. You don't cherish your own position as crown prince. So why should my father regret anything? It's as if he's the one who chose to be crown prince for my father. I watched the crown prince leave in anger. In my previous life, my father had served him faithfully, sharing his burdens. In this life, my father didn't stop him. On the eve of his wedding, he rushed to the palace without a care, just to marry a concubine's daughter. No wonder the emperor was so angry he nearly spat blood. My father glared at Chu Balian and said, "You get what you deserve. From today onward, I no longer wish to interfere in your affairs. You chose this path, take responsibility for your own actions. Attendants, escort the second young miss back." After Chu Balian left, my father turned to me and my mother and said, "You two should return to rest. I must go to the palace." "Father, are you still going to plead for the crown prince?" I asked. My father patted my hand and said, "Don't worry. I'm not foolish. Anyway, he won't be crown prince for long. This marriage is off, and we'll have to arrange a new one for you. Otherwise, if this gets out, how will you ever marry in the future?" I grabbed my father's sleeve. The horrors of my previous life were still fresh in my mind. "Father, I don't want to marry anyone." "That's nonsense. You just fell and hurt yourself once. And now you're afraid to marry? How can you be a daughter of the Chu family?" My father said to me, "When you reach my age, you'll understand. In the imperial family, how many people can truly be with one person for a lifetime? But the power in your hands, the glory of the Chu family, and the good you can do for the people in your lifetime, these are things that will be recorded in history books. Don't blame your father for being heartless. Ordinary women can pursue the life they desire. But you were personally chosen by the emperor as the crown prince's bride. Between love and power, if you can have both, that's wonderful. But if you can't, your father would rather you choose the latter. It won't be as passionate as glue, but it will be prosperous and thriving. Your father believes in you." I was deeply moved by my father's words. Can a woman also live a life of grace and charm? In this world that values sons over daughters, my father treats us siblings equally. He has made every arrangement for me and Chu Balian. Chu Balian could have had a better life, but she was too ungrateful. "Father, among these princes, the second prince is incompetent and indulgent. The third prince is foolish and lacking in talent. The only one capable of shouldering great responsibilities is the fourth prince. I recall that you have always held him in high regard." My father sighed and said, "Yes. Among the princes, in terms of character and ability, he is indeed worthy. Unfortunately, he has no interest in inheriting the throne. Otherwise he wouldn't have remained indifferent when someone else claimed the credit for saving the emperor. In the previous life, Gu Yunjing saved the emperor and had an engagement with me. So he was appointed crown prince by the emperor. It turns out that the one who saved the emperor was not him, but the fourth prince. Gu Yunjing and Chu Balian, one loves to claim others' merits, and the other loves to impersonate others. They truly are birds of a feather." I said, "Not liking to eat fish doesn't mean one can't fish. Father, you understand this principle, and the emperor understands it even more." Gu Yunjing, "Without the Chu family, I will watch helplessly as your position as crown prince is taken away." My father rushed to the palace to see the emperor, and the emperor betrothed me to the fourth prince. We are to enter the palace in 3 days to express our gratitude. In this life, Chu Balian is still only betrothed to be the crown prince's concubine. But she was proud. On the night she received the imperial edict, she rushed to my room and said, "As long as it's not you, it doesn't matter who becomes empress. Even if I'm only a concubine, I still have a chance to become an imperial concubine in the future. As for you, Chu Linyao, You can forget about it for the rest of your life. From now on, whenever we meet, you'll have to kneel before me and call me Empress." I looked at her distorted face and asked calmly, "Why?" We had no grudge against each other. Why would she rather die than let me live in peace? At this point, she suddenly raised her eyes to meet mine. Like a greedy demon from hell, we are both daughters of the Chu family. In terms of background and beauty, I am no inferior to you. Why did father favor you? Just because you are the legitimate daughter? Chu Lin Yao. I will make everyone in the Chu family see you kneeling before me, submitting to me. Who made us both daughters of the Chu family? Yet only one can become empress? Even if I can't be empress, I'd rather let someone else have it. As long as I'm alive, I'll never let you become empress. I had never seen such a venomous Chu Balian before. She was completely different from the timid and fragile sister in my memories. I was even more furious with myself for being so easily manipulated by such a short-sighted person in my previous life, out of jealousy. You couldn't bear being a concubine's daughter. Yet you allowed the child in your womb to be born as a concubine's child, for your own glory. You were willing to bring shame upon the Chu family, for your own future. You were willing to gamble away the future of the crown prince. You've harmed others and yourself. Sister, should I call you clever? Or foolish? However, perhaps it wasn't me who lost in the previous life, but rather the cheap affection I had for Gu Yunjing. Fortunately, in this life, I won't choose Gu Yunjing. 3 days later, I entered the palace on the same day as Chu Balian to pay respects to the emperor and express gratitude. Due to our different statuses, Chu Balian, as the crown prince's concubine, was dressed in her finest attire and rode in the family's most luxurious carriage. Yunshi was so angry her hairpin flew out of her hair. "Miss, you are the legitimate daughter." I cut her off. She is the crown prince's concubine. Let her gloat for a few days. Anyway, she won't be gloating for long. Yunshi suddenly pointed at the carriage ahead and said, "Miss, look! Isn't that the crown prince? He actually came to pick her up himself. She's going to the palace to pay her respects to the emperor. So why does she need to bring so many scrolls?" Hearing this, I lifted the curtain and glanced out, saying indifferently, perhaps she thinks the current emperor likes scroll paintings. When I was 8 years old, the emperor came to visit our home in disguise with several princes. 2 paintings I had drawn in my father's study caught the emperor's admiration. One was a scene of autumn harvest, with abundant crops but poor and hungry farmers. The other was a scene of the court distributing porridge and money, with people lining up for miles. The emperor asked me why I painted such scenes. I pulled on his sleeve and whispered in his ear, "Those born into wealth should be grateful to heaven and their parents. Every bite and sip should remind us of the hardships of the farmers." The emperor was greatly pleased and asked me what kind of person I wanted to marry when I grew up. I pointed to the painting of the soup distribution and said, "I want to marry the person who can feed the people in the painting." Perhaps those 2 innocent words from my childhood led the emperor to choose me as a candidate for the crown princess. Now, Chu Balian is also trying to curry favor by presenting her own paintings to the emperor, flaunting her artistic talents. Chu Balian had originally planned to make a splash in front of the emperor, imitating my childhood actions, to gain his favor. However, she was so preoccupied with showing off that she failed to notice that both the emperor and the empress were furious with her. Because of her, the crown prince acted impulsively and ruined a marriage alliance, also revealing to the emperor that he was unfit for the throne. Especially the empress, whose son Gu Yunjing had not yet secured his position in the Eastern Palace. Now, due to Chu Balian's meddling, his future path was filled with uncertainties. Therefore, when Chu Balian knelt on the ground holding her paintings and said, "Your Majesty, I have painted a few pieces recently and wish to present them to you and the Empress." Neither the Emperor nor the Empress acknowledged her. The Emperor, as always, showed concern for me, asking what books I had read recently and what interesting things were happening in the countryside. He listened with satisfaction and rewarded me with numerous jewelry, and rare books. Then continued chatting with my father about family matters. Throughout the entire conversation, neither the emperor nor the empress mentioned Chu Balian once. Despite being a concubine, she was treated like a maid, kneeling by the side unnoticed. The empress even expressed concern that Gu Yunjing might not secure the position of crown prince, and hastily arranged another marriage for him in front of the emperor. The eldest daughter of the Minister of Rights, Yao Qingqing, was to be the crown prince's official wife. The emperor didn't even hesitate before agreeing. Chu Balian had mentioned earlier that she had painted several pictures and wanted to present them to the emperor. Now, she was still kneeling on the ground, holding the paintings. Her face was so red it seemed like it might bleed. I had thought that Chu Balian had already lost all face. But when the emperor personally arranged the marriage and we all stood up to express our gratitude, Gu Yunjing eagerly helped Yao Qingqing to her feet, not daring to look at Chu Balian once throughout the entire process. I guess Gu Yunjing must have been scolded severely by the emperor on the day he broke off the engagement. And when his position as crown prince was threatened, he knew he had to learn his lesson. I was engrossed in the scene when I stood up, and a strong hand reached out to help me up. His hand was pale and slender. I looked up and realized it was the fourth prince, Gu Yunting. The emperor looked at us with satisfaction and smiled. Yunting usually seems so cold and aloof, but he's kind to Lin Yao. It seems I made the right decision in arranging this marriage. However, only I knew how much my hands were trembling. The days and nights Gu Yunjing tormented me were still fresh in my mind, and I now felt both fear and resistance toward men. But my father was right, getting hurt once isn't scary, what matters is picking yourself up. The empress, with a forced smile, chimed in. Yes. Who would have thought that the fourth prince is so considerate? Unlike Yunjing, who is always preoccupied with court affairs. I heard that there was an assassin attempting to break out of prison last night. Yunjing stayed up all night to ensure the emperor's safety, and even ran around all morning to handle the matter. The emperor looked at Gu Yunzhong with satisfaction. That's more like it. Finally, you're acting like a crown prince. The empress successfully diverted the emperor's attention and then said to Gu Yunzhong, I know you want to ease your father's worries, but you should also set aside some time to focus on your own future. Stay in the Phoenix Palace today and chat with Miss Yao for a while. Gu Yunjing was about to agree when I suddenly interrupted. Your Majesty, the empress has misunderstood. Last night, the crown prince was at the Ministry of Rights accompanying his younger sister. It was the fourth prince who captured the assassin. The empress looked at me disapprovingly. You're just a young lady who never leaves the palace. How do you know it was the fourth prince who captured the assassin? Facing the emperor and empress's scrutiny, I cautiously replied, Your Majesty, the fourth prince's arm is injured and bleeding. The eunuch by the emperor's side also said, That's right. The fourth prince interrogated the assassin all night and rushed to the palace this morning to express his gratitude. He hasn't rested yet. The emperor turned to Gu Yunjing and asked, Didn't I order you to interrogate the assassin this morning? Where were you? Gu Yunjing was so scared that he immediately knelt on the ground and said, Your Majesty, I went to escort Bai Lian into the palace. You fool! The emperor was so angry that he threw his teacup at him, splashing Bai Lian with tea. The two of them knelt side by side with their heads bowed. Bai Lian only said one sentence the entire time. Because of this minor incident, she was resented by the empress once again. It was time to leave the palace. As Chu Balian and I were about to board the carriage, a servant from the fourth prince's entourage rushed over. Miss Chu, the fourth prince has official business to attend to and cannot see you off personally. He said the road is bumpy, so he wants you to ride in his carriage instead. These guards will escort you back, and it will be safer. The fourth prince's gesture of goodwill was graciously accepted. Please convey my gratitude to the fourth prince on my behalf. Before boarding the carriage, I handed him my handkerchief. Your master has an injured arm, please remind him to bandage it properly. Yes. Chu Bailian watched the entire scene from the side, then snapped at the maid. Where is the crown prince? The empress has kept the crown prince at the Phoenix Hall, where he is accompanying Miss Yao. She said nothing more and angrily got into the carriage. At dinner, my father said to my mother, the emperor has only given us a month to prepare for the wedding. We have 2 daughters getting married, so we need to start preparing early to avoid being overwhelmed later. My mother had just said, I understand, when Chu Bailian immediately brought out the standard rhetoric about the relationship between ruler and subject, then mentioned that she was carrying the emperor's heir, and said to my mother there is a distinction between subjects and the imperial family. Mother, prepare for me first. Your eldest daughter is only marrying a prince, so it's enough to just go through the motions. But the crown prince is still the crown prince. Even if I am only a concubine, the child in my womb is still of royal blood. We can't let the emperor think that our family is disrespectful to the imperial family. My mother rolled her eyes at Chu Bailian, probably already knowing about Chu Bailian's audience with the emperor earlier that day, and didn't bother to respond. My father said the crown prince is also a prince, and princes are princes. They must not be treated unfairly. There is a distinction between wives and concubines. How can we, the Chu family, marry our daughter off to the crown prince in a proper ceremony and then neglect her, while the entire family rushes to arrange for her to become a concubine? What kind of honor is that? Chu Bailian, who had been scorned by the emperor earlier that day, wept uncontrollably that night and said to my father, Father, even if you favor my sister, there must be limits, even if I am not favored by the emperor or the empress. So what? The one marrying the crown prince is me. Once I give birth to his eldest son, they will accept me. Though you value my sister, doesn't the future of the Chu family depend on me to support it? My mother snapped. You've brought shame upon the Chu family. What do you expect from you? Just then, the empress sent someone to fetch Chu Bailian to the crown prince's mansion. Chu Bailian couldn't help but ask, I am the crown prince's concubine. Shouldn't we choose an auspicious day for the wedding? Why are they taking me away in the middle of the night? Who knew that the old nurse would say, You're heavily pregnant. Do you want everyone to know? But I was betrothed by His Majesty. The old nurse interrupted her and continued, Although you were personally chosen by His Majesty to be the crown prince's concubine, the main wife's wedding is imminent. Do you really want to enter the palace alongside her? If we don't bring you into the crown prince's mansion now, the longer we drag this out, the bigger your belly will get. Your Chu family won't care. But what about the imperial family's reputation? Take her away. As soon as she finished speaking, several old maids and maids rushed forward to escort Chu Bailian away. I couldn't help but give the old maid a thumbs up in my heart. If Chu Bailian were to throw herself into the lake again, it would have nothing to do with our Chu family. I wonder what kind of spell Chu Bailian cast on Gu Yunjing. After she entered the prince's mansion, Gu Yunjing went to the palace that night to argue with the empress. The matter spread like wildfire throughout the palace and beyond. With the prince's wedding approaching, the empress was so enraged that she suffered a stroke. It was even said that the emperor was alarmed. The emperor threatened that if the crown prince caused any more trouble, he would make Chu Bailian his concubine. The crown prince's mansion finally calmed down. The Ministry of Rites selected an auspicious date, with the crown prince's wedding on the 15th of September in mind with the fourth prince on the 26th of September. As a court official, my father should attend to offer congratulations. Since I am engaged to the fourth prince, Yao Qingqing is my future sister-in-law, so I must also attend. Therefore, at the wedding of Crown Prince Gu Yunjing and Crown Princess Yao Qingqing, I witnessed Gu Yunjing also preparing a set of attire for Chu Bailian. Chu Bailian was covered in a red veil, and her attire was on par with that of the crown princess. The crown prince's wedding is no trivial matter, everything must adhere to the established protocols. Such brazen defiance of the emperor's authority left everyone gasping in disbelief. The emperor was stunned, and the empress was speechless. Gu Yunjing's actions were no longer just about humiliating the minister of ceremonies and the crown princess. He was humiliating them in front of the emperor and the empress, dragging their faces through the mud and then stomping on them with his feet. The crowd began to whisper. The crown prince and crown princess are getting married. But there are two crown princesses? Both are crown princesses. How will the hierarchy be determined in the future? Yao Qingqing, covered by her red veil, could not hide her emotions. The Minister of Rites immediately turned pale, and the emperor, enraged, stormed off to the palace. The empress, enduring a headache, managed to maintain order. As she accepted the bows of the crowd, she turned to my father and demanded, "Is this how you taught your daughter, Minister of the Secretariat?" My father replied, "There is a distinction between ruler and subject. Once a concubine is married to the crown prince, she is no longer a daughter of the Chu family." The others did not understand, but the empress did. She knew that my father would no longer support her son. This wedding had also offended the Minister of Ceremonial Affairs. Fearing that Gu Yunjing would have no one to support him and that his position in the Eastern Palace would be unstable, the Empress summoned the concubine daughters of the officials from the Ministry of War and the Ministry of Revenue, as well as those from families with influence in the court, and made them all concubines for him. At least 6 or 7 concubines. Gu Yunjing had only been with Chu Balian for a few days before he had to start busy nights as a bridegroom. These days, Gu Yunjing is the talk of the court, enjoying immense power and prestige, as if he has already solidified his position in the Eastern Palace. However, I know, Gu Yunting knows, and my father knows that this is all superficial. The emperor is nearly at his wit's end with this mother and son. Nevertheless, I admire Gu Yunjing for remaining loyal to Chu Balian amidst all the temptations. Rumors are circulating that on the night of his wedding, Gu Yunjing was with Chu Balian. To win Chu Balian's favor, Gu Yunjing went to great lengths to procure rare and exotic creatures to amuse her. Chu Balian even hosted a banquet, inviting the noble women of Bianjing to attend. The two of them completely disregarded the face of the Minister of Rites and the Crown Princess Yao Qingqing. Chu Balian's personal maid even boasted in front of everyone. The Crown Prince said that although he cannot give our young lady the title of Crown Princess, he will give her the best in the world, so that she will never be looked down upon or suffer any injustice. All the women knew that Chu Balian was the Crown Prince's favorite. So for a time, whether they were noble women or servants of the Crown Prince's mansion, they all treated her with great respect, completely overshadowing Crown Princess Yao Qingqing. People outside were all envious, as the Crown Prince and his concubine were in perfect harmony, and almost everyone had forgotten who the official wife was. Just as Chu Balian was wielding immense power in the prince's inner quarters, my wedding day arrived. As the Crown Prince's wife, Yao Qingqing naturally had to attend my wedding ceremony alongside Gu Yunjing. As I was getting ready, Yao Qingqing looked at me with envy and said, "Miss Chu, you are truly blessed. Even heaven is helping you find such a fine husband. I used to wonder why you would give up being the Crown Prince's consort to become the 4th prince's wife, but now I understand better than anyone else." I held Yao Qingqing's hand and said to her, "Listen to me. The best way to deal with her is to let her be." Yao Qingqing was a smart woman. Her dim eyes lit up again, and I knew she understood. Gu Yunting and I got married. Chu Balian was a concubine and shouldn't have been there, but she was my younger sister, so Gu Yunjing brought her along. Everyone knew how much Gu Yunjing pampered Chu Balian, so they all toasted her. Yao Qingqing, however, sat in the corner, letting Chu Balian have all the glory. Now that Gu Yunjing was in the imperial court, he was full of himself and naturally had many admirers. Everyone took turns toasting him, And before long, he was drunk. I had arranged the banquet with Gu Yunting beforehand, and the surrounding seats were filled with censors who had long disapproved of Gu Yunjin's favoritism toward his concubine and neglect of his wife. After getting drunk, Gu Yunjin boldly declared, "Once I ascend the throne, everyone present will be granted titles." There was nothing we could do. After all, the empress had looked down on the censors. So she had chosen concubines for the crown prince from the daughters of ministers. Otherwise, such words would never have reached the emperor's ears. I was starving in the bridal chamber and was about to take out the pastries Yunshi had secretly given me to eat. Suddenly, a pair of feet appeared under the red veil. I jumped in fright and dropped the pastry on the ground. A cold voice came from above, "What are you doing?" When I realized it was Gu Yunting, I was so nervous I couldn't speak. He helped me lift the veil, and I quickly swallowed the food in my mouth. Looking up at his stern face, I complained, "Fourth prince, you walk without making a sound. Are you trying to scare me?" Though we had known each other from a previous life, I didn't truly understand him. In my memory, every time I accompanied Gu Yunjing to the palace to audience with the emperor, he would watch me from afar. We had locked eyes countless times. Yet we had never spoken a word. I had always been afraid of stern and serious people, and he gave me the impression of being difficult to approach. So I always avoided him. I never imagined that one day he would sit beside me as my husband, teasing me. "Who told you to tremble every time you see me? If I don't scare you, who else would I scare?" I was both angry and annoyed, but unconsciously. The distance between us had grown closer. He treated me with great respect, coaxing me to drink the ceremonial cup of wine with him. He would use the handkerchief I had used to bandage his arm to wipe the food crumbs from his mouth. He would consider my feelings, comfort me, and not let me feel afraid. I finally came to my senses. It turned out that the wedding night could be so warm and loving, not just a series of petty torments. In the dead of night, he whispered in my ear, "Don't worry. I will be the one who feeds the farmer in the painting." I looked at him in astonishment. Those were the words I had said when I was 8 years old. It turned out he had remembered them all this time. On the second day after my marriage to Gu Yunting, the emperor accused Gu Yunjing of mistreating his wife and being disobedient and unfilial, and sought to strip him of his title as crown prince. This was opposed by all the ministers, except my father. Gu Yunjing became increasingly aware of the importance of court official support and stopped favoring Chu Balian exclusively, instead beginning to cultivate relationships with his concubines. Yao Qingqing had long given up on Gu Yunjing and decided to set up a Buddhist shrine in her room, distancing herself from the struggles for favor. Recently, due to the incident of deposing the crown prince, His Majesty fell seriously ill, his health deteriorating day by day, and he was gradually losing his strength. Following ancestral tradition, he ordered Gu Yunjing to lead the ministers to pay respects to the fallen soldiers of the Great Zhou dynasty. However, before the ceremony began, news arrived that Chu Balian had suffered a miscarriage. Despite the pleas of the ministers, Gu Yunjing insisted on returning to the crown prince's mansion, leaving the ceremony unattended. A loyal minister, whose daughter was also one of Gu Yunjing's concubines, risked his life by clinging to Gu Yunjing's leg to prevent him from leaving. However, Gu Yunjing stabbed him through the throat with a sword, and no one dared to speak up. Gu Yunjing, unwilling to offend the ministers, disregarded the funeral rites, and shortly after returning to the prince's mansion, entered the palace in the middle of the night. He did not come to apologize but to request an imperial decree to depose the crown princess Yao Qingqing and make Chu Balian the crown princess. The empress was so enraged that she fell seriously ill. This matter had already reached the emperor's ears, and he could no longer tolerate Gu Yunjing. Before my father went to the crown prince's mansion, he told me that Chu Balian was, after all, the daughter of the Chu family, and asked me to go with him to see her. I felt the timing was right. So I had someone send a message to Yao Qingqing, telling her to prepare in advance. When Gu Yunjing took me and my father to the inner courtyard to visit Chu Bailian, we happened upon a dramatic scene. Yao Qingqing was confronting Chu Bailian head-on. Yao Qingqing, you drank the abortion potion yourself and framed me. That was a clever move. But the emperor has not agreed to depose the crown princess. As long as I am here, you will remain a concubine. You sacrificed your child and still couldn't bring me down. I truly feel sorry for you. Chu Bailian choked Yao Qingqing by the neck and said, You've been pretending to be a virtuous nun for so long. And now you've finally shown your true colors. Humph? Crown princess. You don't deserve that title. Yao Qingqing still has a long life ahead of her. We'll see who laughs last. Rest assured. As long as I'm alive, you won't hold that position for long. What's there to see? When did you get pregnant? Are you going to drink the abortion potion again? Chu Bailian retorted. I'll tell you the truth. This child isn't the prince's at all. Without this bastard, I'll have one less problem. I don't care about it at all. I originally planned to use this child to trip up my sister. But I never expected it would benefit you instead. Yao Qingqing was shocked and exclaimed, Everyone says you were made a concubine because you were pregnant with the prince's child. Could it be that? Chu Bailian pressed closer to Yao Qingqing, challenging her. That's right. I wanted to take my sister's position as the crown prince's consort. But if I only focus on having an affair with the crown prince, what if he turns his back on me later? Of course I had to find a way to conceive his child. Do you want to go tell him now that the child isn't his? So he'll forgive you? Go ahead. See if he believes you or me. At that moment, I noticed Gu Yunjing's expression was a roller coaster of shock, anger, disappointment, and betrayal. Finally, he collapsed helplessly onto the ground. Chu Guanren. I finally understand why you insisted on refusing this marriage back then. He was astonished that the woman he had pampered the most was not human. He was furious that he had been manipulated by such a woman. He apologized to my father. But what good would that do now? It was all too late. My father held the imperial edict revoking the crown prince's title. When my father read the edict aloud, his voice was so loud that Chu Bailian couldn't utter a word beside him. She probably never expected that Gu Yunjing, my father, and I would come to visit her at this moment. It took her a long time to regain her composure. She no longer feared the revoked crown prince and rushed forward to threaten me and my father, Chu Lingyao. Are you feeling very pleased with yourself? You're going to become the crown princess again. But don't get too cocky. I've committed a crime deserving of extermination of 9 generations. None of you will escape unscathed. Before my father could speak, Gu Yunjing kicked Chu Bailian into the lake. She was in the postpartum period and couldn't endure the cold. So she quickly stopped breathing. Sir, no one will know about today's events. Yao Qingqing covered her mouth in fear and hurriedly knelt on the ground. Gu Yunjing continued. Sir, if you are willing to help me regain the crown prince's position, I will appoint you as chancellor once I ascend the throne. My father patted his shoulder and sighed. Your Highness. It's too late now. I kept an eye on Gu Yunjing's expression the entire time. His eyes were filled with madness and resentment. He finally dove into the lake and pulled Chu Bailian out, kicking and stomping on her violently. My father was utterly disappointed in Chu Bailian and left in a fit of anger. A month later, Gu Yunjing colluded with the Empress's maternal clan to rebel. However, I had waited too long for this day. I had already instructed Gu Yunting to ambush him outside the palace. So Gu Yunjing now had another charge of treason. I knew his time had come. But I didn't want him to die at someone else's hands. Dressed as a soldier, I aimed my arrow at Gu Yunjing from the city wall. The arrow pierced his heart. As I was reveling in the sweet revenge, Gu Yunting suddenly embraced me. Why are you here? This place is dangerous. Who told you to come? In the blink of an eye, I saw the vengeful glare in Gu Yinjing's eyes. As he drew his bow, I pushed Gu Yinting away and shielded him from Gu Yinjing's arrow. Holding my chest wound, I said happily, I just made a wish to the heavens. If I could hit him with an arrow, you could ascend the throne safely. Look. He fell off his horse. Looking at his anxious expression, I reached out and touched his cold face. In truth, I knew I wouldn't die. I wondered if this arrow wound could become my talisman in the future. In truth, just moments ago, I had comforted myself. It doesn't matter. I've already died once. I came here to witness Gu Yinjing's death. Chu Bailian and Gu Yinjing are dead. My father and mother are alive. The one who ascends the throne isn't Gu Yinjing. Gu Yinting will be a good emperor. This outcome is already satisfactory. My father used the turmoil in the imperial palace and the unrest in the country to silence me, forcing me to marry him despite my disgust. He held me tightly and spoke in a light tone, trying to comfort me. Io. Look. The prince's rebels have been captured. I opened my eyes and saw the burning flags on the ground in Gu Yinjing's body. Yes. Gu Yinjing can never rise again. Gu Yinting summoned the imperial physician. The physician said that the arrow that struck Gu Yinjing was not very powerful and fortunately did not hit his heart. So I had narrowly escaped death. Gu Yinting heard this and sighed in relief. Later, the imperial physician said that I was already 2 months pregnant. Gu Yinting was so angry that he didn't speak to me for several days. 2 months later, the emperor passed away, and Gu Yinting ascended the throne. According to the law, Gu Yinjing was guilty of treason, and the members of the empress's maternal clan were also to be executed. Gu Yinting spared Yao Qingqing and the other concubine-born daughters from Gu Yinjing's household. The empress had intended to win over the court officials to plot for her son. But unexpectedly, these officials remained even more loyal to Gu Yinting. A year later, I gave birth to a prince. Gu Yinting named him Crown Prince and, citing the presence of an heir, refused to take any more concubines. Throughout the history of the Great Zhou dynasty, there were many emperors who practiced monogamy, so the court officials had little to say. I asked Gu Yinting countless times why he was so kind to me. One day, Gu Yinting suddenly said to me in a mysterious tone, Io. Do you believe that perhaps the life we are living now is a reincarnation of my previous life? I gasped in shock, staring at him. All I could hear was him continuing, in my previous life, although I was the emperor, there was an unresolved regret in my heart. Perhaps heaven is fulfilling a dream for me. This dream was hard-won. So naturally I cherish and love you. So he had also been reborn.